Statistically, you will click on this video within 30 seconds. So let me save you the hassle and tell you that the thumbnail and the title are clickbait. What I actually want to discuss is a bizarre online phenomenon I came across recently. The internet is strange as a rule, but this was both puzzling and perplexing for several reasons. I chanced upon a discussion claiming that China has a caste system, much like India's Varna system, and that the Chinese government was trying to suppress this knowledge via the Great Firewall. Presumably, most of these posts were originating from Indian nationalists or ardent patriots of India. This raised a number of alarms for me because that is not the characterization of modern Chinese society I have come to understand. But being humble, I thought to myself, wow, what the hell? Maybe it is so. After all, like the caste system in India, it doesn't necessarily impact me directly. But before the factoid could even settle in my brain, I was met with multiple more posts proclaiming the exact same thing. Sometimes with minor variations, but most of the time it was nearly identical. The same content repeated with very few changes. This stuck with me because my inner detect social media psyop alarm was ringing loudly. Psyops in social media is a common tactic. Repeat the same claim multiple times to gain traction and challenge established sources of truth. Usually it doesn't prove anything new, but muddies the water just enough to cause confusion. Coincidentally, this felt exactly the same way. But before we dive into the whole debacle, it is worth grounding ourselves in the actual facts. The thing being touted as a Chinese caste system is not even a caste system in the first place. Traditional Chinese society did not have rigid caste system like India's Varna model. Instead, it operated under a flexible hierarchy known as the four occupations: scholars, farmers, artisans, and merchants. This framework was an idealistic Confucian ranking, not fixed, birth-bound system. Scholars, sure, ranked highest because their knowledge contributed to governance and morality. Farmers, Nong, were valued as the economic backbone. Artisans, Gong, created useful goods, while merchants, Shang, ranked lowest for profiting from others' labor. However, this hierarchy was not a closed caste system. Social mobility existed, primarily through the imperial civil service examinations. In theory, a talented commoner could rise to the ranks of scholar official elite. Beneath these four classes existed marginalized groups like the mean people, including actors, prostitutes, and jailers, who were legally barred from intermarriage with commoners and from taking the exams. Hereditary occupations and forms of servitude also existed, but these were not as rigidly codified as caste. The key distinction is that status in traditional China was achievable through education and examination, whereas caste in India is traditionally hereditary and linked to religious purity. The Chinese system was a social structure one could enter or leave, not a permanent birthright. Now that we have a clear understanding of the subject, I want to get into the meat and potatoes of the issue. A few things warrant discussion. First, the choice of this line of attack against modern India. Second, who this display of cyber warfare is for. And third, why it fails as a potent narrative against the Chinese. The choice of this line of attack raises eyebrows. The caste system in India is well documented and practiced even by the Indian diaspora. But the concept of a Chinese caste system is not something most people are familiar with. There is some potency there. Unfamiliarity creates a disarming effect, and the information vacuum is ripe for confusion. At the same time, the specific line of attack says more about the accuser's mentality than the accused. India does have a genuine caste problem, with most of the society practicing it outside state institutions, and even after migrating abroad. Regardless of its merits or lack thereof, Indian society has become increasingly shaped by caste dynamics, extending into the inhuman practice of untouchability. This growing prominence has drawn international ire. It has come to define, in the global eye, one of India's deficiencies. Naturally, this would lead to inferiority complex. But the key distinction I see in this massive fake expose is that rather than looking inwards at themselves, their country, and their society, Indian netizens have chosen to project their inferiority complex onto China. So, is that it? An inferiority complex rebranded as ammunition for an online propaganda war? I don't think so. Something I should have clarified earlier is that I still don't know if this disinformation campaign is state directed or purely grassroots, amplified by increasing Indian participation on Twitter under Elon Musk. It seems likely that it is a mix of both. But the more important question is, who is the target audience for this barrage of disinformation, or what some would call an online propaganda war? It cannot be the Chinese themselves, as most of these posts are in English. It cannot be aimed at the wider Anglophone global society, as many citizens of these countries have visa free access to China as part of China's cultural openness drive. So, who is the target? One thing to note is that most posts decrying the hidden caste system in China garner roughly 7 to 8,000 likes, with similar engagement metrics across the board. It is only when you take a step back that you realize that this level of interaction lends these posts a certain aura of credibility and authority. It serves to create an atmosphere of mass acceptance of the narrative being pushed, even if the content itself is questionable at best. The only conclusion I can reach is that this massive display is aimed at their own Indian compatriots. The echo chamber is a well understood concept. Some of the most successful political movements of the 21st century effectively harness the power of online echo chambers when you think about it. For a political project, it is vital to build an internet echo chamber to insulate supporters from ground reality and create an environment where sources of truth are constantly challenged. The content itself can be rebutted and publicly humiliated, as we have seen with Trump and Republicans in America. But the true motive is to push these ideas into the broader public, convince them that this is a valid debate, and invite susceptible individuals into the so called in group. In a successful echo chamber, participation reaches a critical mass and becomes self sustaining. Members reinforce the chamber and draw more people in. It is my analysis that Indian nationalists are also creating or have already created their own echo chamber, following the success of movements like Trump's MAGA. The caste system hoax, however anomalous, is pushed to further strengthen that echo chamber and draw more people in. It defies common sense, yet it makes perfect sense when viewed from the larger political angle. This is exactly why the lie needs to be repeated. This is exactly why every accusation and criticism of the narrative is met with more aggression. As for my third point, Why this does not work against the Chinese? It is simple. As I mentioned earlier, China has opened up tourism with massive visa program for numerous countries. With growing tourism from all corners of the earth, people can see Chinese society with their own eyes. Popular streamers have taken advantage of these relaxed visa rules. iShowSpeed and others come to mind. And Chinese society has become demystified for millions. It is now an environment where anyone who wants to see for themselves can go and do so. More importantly, even if this supposed caste system existed hidden in plain sight, the effort to expose it comes across as a little bit bitter, self projecting loser activity, especially when it is Indian nationalists doing the exposing. One massive thing that supports my argument is the nascent effort by Indian nationalists to frame countries like the United States as also having a caste system. This fits perfectly with my theory that they are cultivating an echo chamber mindset in their domestic audience. So, did Indian nationalists expose anything? No. But in doing so, they exposed a great deal about themselves. Much can be said about nationalism being an idiot's ideology. But I want to end this video and keep my sanity. Cheers.